Hi, this is Jeff Schultz at the 2010 Cascadian International PNR Region Conference Convention here in Lynnwood, Washington. And we're here with Bob Rorabaugh, who is a first-time diorama builder and submitter to the contest. And we kind of thought his diorama was interesting in its construction and some of its detailing, and we'd like Bob to tell us about it.
Well, thank you. This is a privilege. I have been sitting at the feet of some master model railroaders and some real artists, soaking up everything they had to tell me. Master model railroader Paul Scholes taught me about terrain and trees. Then an incredible artist in Todd Gamble taught me more, even in today's clinics. We've had some excellent clinics in this NMRA convention. I can't afford the hobby shop, nor does my time allow me to get there when they're open. So I've tried to improvise, and I'm thinking, if I take serious the construction of paper buildings, one, they can be downloaded from the internet, sometimes free. But how to make a paper building look more like a turn-of-the-century commissary or a more lately added bunkhouse for some loggers. So I took paper and modified two buildings that were meant to look alike by weathering, the same techniques that would be used on weathering rolling stock. Chalks and dull coat, glue and some kit bashing, worked by turning this established building, or this kit, around and forgetting the facade and the porch roof. I could give it an entirely new appearance with a different chimney stack, a different window alignment. I cut off the brick foundation wall, substituting 3 logs so that technically this could be drug up onto a flat car and moved to another logging camp. So it's a matter of using what I had with a God-given imagination and still a lot of child in me. Ironic that I'm in my mid-60s. What do I have in my garage? What can I find that my wife is throwing away? What can I dig up from the garden or cut off from my neighbor's plants that would give me a first contest entry?
And it looks like you've got kind of a whole list of things here that you've used.
I do. I felt I needed to point out the detail that's cheap and readily available. Starting with Paper Creek Model Works house or building, paper can be colored. Paper can be attached by adhesive to things like remnants from matting in a fine Photoshop. But for terrain, I didn't use a, what shall we say, a cloth permeated with any sort of plaster.
Plaster cloth?
Plaster
Okay.
cloth. The day my assignment was due, I found a reasonably clean terry cloth cotton towel, meant to go with us the next time we went into the flood zone of the Lewis River, a giveaway to people who had lost everything. Instead, I remembered remnants of Quikrete curled up in the bottom of a sack I didn't think to completely use. And polymer, anything that might set up quick and hard. I dipped the terry cloth towel, and as it hardened, it gave me this really rough texture that appears to be an HO scale like ankle-high scrub, weeds, foliage under trees. So to go from a nice, you can check that out, to go from a nice soft washcloth or towel to a very harder colored terrain material, when you add some ground foam, you get the appearance of a real-life woodsy scene.
What did you use to color it? Because I see your scrap here is yellow, and there's definitely no yellow on the floor of the diorama.
Well, this particular terrain on the level, smoother than the rough terry cloth towel up here, is an old running shirt that opted to ventilate in the armpits. And when they do that, my wife tends to rip them off my back. Before it could be completely shredded, I salvaged enough purple cloth to mostly color with my ground foam. So there's really no paint on here unless it was light spray on some of the buildings. to cloud the colors or to hide the paper. So you're seeing in the lighter places on my diorama the color of a shirt I used to wear. A throwaway, unless redeemed.
Okay. And, okay, you've got a playing card here that looks like it's got some pieces cut out. What was that for?
I was running along the road and found part of a playing deck. I can literally be accused of not playing with a full deck because I brought some of those cards home, scoped them out, and discovered that they scale to half-inch plate steel, half-inch plywood. Hence, some of the support for my building is from a very easily cut laminated paper you knew was a throwaway deck because you were missing a card. You might never throw a thing away again.
Interesting.
You asked about the color. It's all just ground foam. There's no paint. Yes, this half-inch plate steel has allowed me to cover the stairwell on a Union Pacific B unit or CAF because the prototype didn't have steps on both ends of the engine. So wherever you need half-inch material, consider a laminated card.
Well, goodness knows I've got enough decks of playing cards around that never considered it as a construction material.
When you are not playing with a full deck.
That's
Move them to the
something
hobby.
I've been accused of often enough. Okay,
Miscellaneous other detail?
well, you've got this third building out here that I'm kind of interested in. I think it looks like a series of outhouses.
In our Seattle clinic, guys were walking away from paper they didn't want to use. It's like, do I have to do something? I just came for friendship or whatever. So I, with permission of the clinician, gathered up some of the miscellaneous paper and wound up with 4 little paper outhouses. Well, it's too easy to build one, so I ganged 3 together and put them on skids. Again, this could be pulled onto a flat car and moved. I call it my logging camp latrine skid. Ganged them together, built a common roof and a common porch, looked through my box of miscellaneous parts, I didn't even know what most of them were, discovered something that looked like, if cut appropriately, would be a 1-piece utility sink instead of a 5-piece styrene. So I plumbed from it and dumped the wash water into a Dutch well. But yes, that's a logging camp latrine skid with a wash basin and a bird nest in the crotch of the bracing.
And the donkey engine that's kind of hidden back here behind the first building, is it a kit or a scratch built or what?
That was given to me by Gramps, the man who can put more HO equipment in a space than anyone should be allowed to. And it looks busy, cluttered, but in its own way, it's brilliant art. When he knew what I was doing, he reached over to his project desk and handed it to me. That's a gift from Gramps. The cable is my own, but steel cable doesn't come in that dimension that I'm aware of, so I pillaged thread from my wife's sewing kit.
Now that can be a dangerous occupation.
Run it through that mixture of white glue and water. It stiffens up like you'd find cable in the woods. And then other details that might slip the casual observer. A tree in the back corner got broke, and it fell over. Well, trees do that, so I've not bothered to repair it. The chimney stack is made from an empty pen filler that I scoped out to be about 9-10 inch scale stovepipe. Someone told me that if I stuck it up through a tiny hole in a square of electrical tape, I would simulate the lead surround that could be shingled into the roof. The wisp of smoke on the bunkhouse is a very bit of cotton ball stretched and pulled to be essentially what's left of an overnight fire. They may let the fire go out. The hose on the end of the latrine skid is just florist wire. It didn't dawn on me until we saw something in a clinic at the convention that green hose would not be ERA correct. I don't know that they had green hoses before 1970.
I have no idea. I wasn't around then.
Oh, probably black. But if you look closely, there is a brass nozzle on the end of that wire.
And I see up front a lady appears to be dumping a bucket out. And what did you use for the water there that's pouring out of the bucket?
That's how the figure came.
And
It's probably plastic.
okay, so do you know what figure it is?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm a scrounge.
All right. Is there anything else about the diorama you'd like to explain to us?
Perhaps tree construction? Oh, yes, there's a secret, not a secret. A detail I have to point out because it's not casually seen. There's scale-appropriate toilet paper in 3 of the 4 latrines.
Okay, I gotta admit I wasn't expecting that one.
It could have been a Sears catalog. Era correct. However, I wanted a toilet paper that wouldn't be seen hanging on the bottom of your shoe. And I discovered that I could take a coated paper clip, treat it as though it were an electrical wire, and pull scale-appropriate length of white plastic coating from the clip for my rolls of toilet paper. Don't know that the camera can pick it up, but on this square near my thumb, there is a roll of toilet paper.
Okay, you're right. That looks pretty good.
You wouldn't have to scale the hanger. You could leave it handled in the back corner of the toilet bench.
Okay, well, we're running out of time here, and I would like to thank you for explaining your salvage diorama, basically. So,
The freebies from weeds and roots.
and everything else.
Yes.
All right. This is Jeff Schultz with Bob Rorabaugh at the Cascadian International 2010 Pacific Northwest Region Convention in Linwood, Washington. And thank you, Bob.
Now, Jeff, use your imagination. It's mostly free, God-given, and it takes pleasure when we become childlike. Again.
It's an inspiration. That it is. Thank you.